thanks, for hanging out and also sharing your experiences, because you are both award-winning musicians who have been in the live stream space. But also, I think what's interesting is you're both using it a bit differently. And again, congrats to Side Door, Dan, for bringing over $200,000 to artists in the past very short amount of time. So congrats to you for that.
It's been a really, really crazy time. We built an engine that we didn't intend for this moment, and it just turned out to be a really relevant sort of platform, and it's working out really well. Thank you.
I do want to ask you, because with that kind of transition from putting artists and spaces together, as you said, like an Airbnb for musicians, what was the most surprising thing from taking the live show to the live stream space?
Well, the platform, like the product, changed quite a lot. Obviously, we had to like adjust things on the website so that it made more sense for online shows. But one thing that was actually like a really big epiphanous moment was after we did the very first show. I was sort of the guinea pig, and what we realized is that the thing that Side Door was always good at was to foster like an impromptu community based around the shared experience of art, not necessarily like just an entertainment platform. Mm-hmm. And though the tech had shifted and the product was shifting, but the actual core delivery of what we were doing had not shifted at all. And that was the most remarkable thing, was that rather than just sort of like broadcasting a bunch of performances, we found that ourselves, like me as an artist, but then also the audiences, were leaving these show experiences feeling like full of heart. You like feeling like you had just experienced something scarce and beautiful and community oriented. And so that's really like that we just had this moment of like, oh man, that's really powerful. So let's lean into that. Let's treat this like a new medium and see what's magical about it, rather than just treating it like a bad version of a real show.
Now, what's your experience been like with your live streaming show?
Initially,
sorry. No,
to me?
Yeah.
So initially, I didn't want to do online live shows. I was just like, I'm going to just ride this out until we can get back to the real world. I don't want to do this right now. It's going to be oversaturated, 20 people. Then I started talking to my audience, and they were like, please do this. We want to support you. We want to be a part of this. And because I figured that, everybody is in the same boat as I am. Like, a lot of us are not working. A lot of us are not getting income. A lot of my fans are in the States and abroad. And while Canada has taken care of us very well in this pandemic, that's not always the case in other places, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna charge people for it. I'm just gonna do this as a promotional thing to see how people respond to it and to kind of troubleshoot it and see if I want to do this going forward. So I just did what I called it. I have a song called "Closer from a Distance," and I called it the "Closer from a Distance" online tour. And I did like 4 shows. One of them was on Facebook, one of them was on Instagram, and then 2 of them were on Zoom. One of them that was on Zoom was done by another company that I've done some live shows with, and they did a thing for healthcare heroes, which is a private event only for healthcare heroes. And I did like 15 minutes of performances. Couldn't see the audience, but I just did it, and then it was done. The other Zoom one was my own private show where it was exclusive. I did a little contest, share the flyer for my tour, type in why you feel like we should be closer from a distance now, and then I will send you a link to the show. So we did that, and that was that's the way we had it was I could see the audience could see me, and that was a great experience. So that was how it kind of started for me. Just kind of like, I made a joke online. I said, "Isn't online concerts so 2015?" And then my audience just beat me up and said, "No, we want it." So we did it, right? So that was cool.
So what I think is interesting is obviously there's this structure with Side Door, and some folks are using Patreon or PayPal or figuring out a way to monetize. But you haven't monetized your shows, but I do kind of want to know if you have, because there is a point where you're an artist, you need to pay your bills. Have you noticed that your audience has shown up in different ways to support you, whether it's streaming numbers or Bandcamp or merch sales or albums?
Merch sales, Spotify streams. I don't have stuff on Bandcamp anymore. But yeah, definitely saw numbers go up in that time, and definitely saw my audience go up as well, right? So we did also some paid campaigns in terms of promoting it on Facebook, and we reached new audiences there as well, just through the ad, right? So yeah, definitely went up. I don't have an actual number at hand, but I definitely saw the stream. Like, you just get the green arrow that points up, and you know what I mean?
That's a good arrow.
Yeah. So the numbers went up. and the sales, physical sales went up, right? And people even asking me for links to buy stuff. So yeah.
Can we talk about this? Because there's so many different platforms, and I feel like Zoom has come up a lot. I never really used Zoom before, and now it's like a weekly thing for me. But there's, there's Twitch, there's Facebook, there's Instagram. Which do you like the most, and which do you think is the most beneficial for the audience and the artist? Dan, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that they're good for different things. Like Instagram, I've done the thing where I'm sitting on my porch, let's turn it on, and Instagram Live, and maybe fumble through a few songs, or like play half a song and then move on to something else and just talk or whatever. That was nice. I have learned to pejoratively call YouTube and Vimeo or Facebook or any of those things where it's like a one-sided mirror. Like people can see me, but I can't see them back. Mm-hmm. To me, I started calling it blind casting. I don't like it. I find it not very fulfilling. Whereas I have found the interactive model so fulfilling. Like I've walked away from a show going like, whoa, I really needed that. That was really special. And so I'm really leaning into the interactive model. I think it's so special to be able to, and it's interesting, like not just see the audience, but watch the audience see each other. And like, I've had shows with like 900 people on Zoom, and there's a gallery view of 25 people, and you're flipping through page after page after page, and you're peering into like hundreds and hundreds of homes, and there's families with dogs and kids and people who are alone, and there's people crying, and there's people dancing. And it's just like, whoa, like humanity all in one go. It's like a little portal pinhole out of an airplane, and you're seeing all this stuff. And so I have found that to be like really existentially rewarding. And then the cool thing is that just because we started with a paywall and it was really little, like it was only $6. But what we found is that because people had paid something at all, that they treated it as something that they valued. So they put it in their calendar. You can tell they like made time for it. And one of the crazy numbers that we found right out of the gate was that over 90% of ticket holders on these shows through Side Door and through Zoom were watching 100% of the show. Whereas on Instagram, you lose like 50% of your audience after 3 minutes. That's just like the retention is brutal. And I think that that's not what it's for. It's for passively like flipping through things. It's not like sitting down for a show. So I think like you could do like ads, like doing Instagram Live and just playing for like 5-10 minutes at a time, messing around. It's almost like promoting. It's like a little trailer or something like that. Whereas sitting down and having a ticketed show, that's like you treat it like a show. Like you should warm up your voice, maybe make a set list, maybe use a co-host, maybe do some Q&A, maybe bring up your audience and talk to them a little bit.
Now, you're known for your banter, and I want to know with the different ways to connect with audiences, again, which I know you brought up Zoom earlier as well, but is that kind of your top pick as well for that reason?
Zoom, definitely from my own personal experience, Zoom was my favorite. It was the most interactive, most connecting, and you felt that the audience, because you see them, but you felt like they had the most reward from it. Like just the reaction at the end, like they wanted to stay longer than not that I wanted to leave, but I have 4 children, I had to put them to sleep, and nobody wanted to leave, you know what I mean? So it's like, I felt like for the future, I would definitely lean towards, like Dan's already monetizing, but I would go into monetizing Zoom as a VIP experience, you know what I mean? Something exclusive. I did like Facebook, but I felt like Facebook was, it was hard to follow like the interactions and read all the comments, and you kind of start feeling like an amateur, like you're like scrolling through stuff trying to read it. But it seemed from my perspective to have a larger reach, right? I don't know how strong a Facebook view is or a stream is on Facebook, what that really means, but it looked like it had a larger reach. Instagram was my least favorite, but I think, like Dan was saying, I don't think it's great for live concerts, but I do think when I was on tour, I used Instagram as a behind the scenes kind of thing. You know what I mean? And I think Instagram seems like people just want to kind of look into your life more. You know what I mean? All my posts about my family always do better than musical posts. You know what I mean? And on Instagram, like if it's a picture of me and my child, they love that kind of stuff. Just kind of impromptu, kind of behind the scenes stuff. So I think doing these 3 shows kind of just showed me how to use each platform differently. I do still see the benefit of just having a rehearsed stage show that I stream to Facebook. You know what I mean? Because it's a great advertisement in a way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just goes out and it's always going to be there. Zoom, you got to do another leg of work to get your Zoom concerts out to the audience. You know what I mean? For the ones that didn't see it, if you want them to see it. You know what I mean? So I love Zoom. I think I definitely use that. I'll use all three of them again, but I will definitely use Zoom more than the other other two. Right?
Noted. And I want to apologize. Thank you to whoever, I think it was Carl. No, it was Charlene who mentioned I was quiet. I hope that this mic helped it. You guys can weigh in the comments. I appreciate it if it's clearer. So we now know that your preferred kind of ways to get your shows out there. Do you think the demand for performances is going to continue, but with more of the old industry model getting in? Looking at the poll results, there was almost as many, I think there was as many managers as artists that were watching.
A lot of other too.
And some other. So do you feel like from a promotional level or sound technician level, or having a proper sound person, or releasing these live streams as recordings, do you think that this current setup will evolve?
Dan, you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I first off, I think that this medium is here to stay. It's been something that has come around because of the pandemic, but now that everyone has invested in it, not just from like a production level, like my first show, I was strumming into my laptop mic. It sounded like garbage. It looked terrible. Now I've got, soft light boxes in my studio. So I'm mostly front lit. I'm running, a nice setup through fancy mics into nice preamps, into nice compressors. But like now that we've all invested in webcams and like a 200-foot long Ethernet cable so I can get to my modem upstairs, like things like, I would have never done any of that before, but now that I have, I'm accustomed to it, and I've climbed the mountain, and that first show is a huge mountain to climb. It's big. And I should say, like, as much as I love Zoom and that's how I do my shows, it's a total pain in the ass. Like you have to do all of these things to go against the grain of what Zoom is trying to do. It wants to compress your audio. It wants to gate it. And you have to like turn it off and fiddle with it and spend hours doing sound checks and like doing quick Zoom calls with your audio friends and being like, does it sound okay? I don't know. And so like, it's terrible in a way. But the thing is that if you get up that mountain and you get to the other side, you have this like epiphanous glory moment. And I think that what we're going to see now, and like mentioning audio techs and stuff like that, I have friends who are audio techs who have been out of work and they're doing like online sound checks, and they're charging like $50 for half an hour online sound check. Or, people who are like spending, they're showing up with a couple SLRs, and they'll go to a sound stage and they'll like do like a super hi-fi 3-camera stream for you and produce it for you and be your co-host on Zoom. And it's like, there's all these skills that are transferable from the real world. So I think what we're going to start seeing, like right now, it's all online. We're going to see a hybrid model where we're going to have like mostly empty venues, and maybe you sell like 30 tickets or 50 tickets or something like that. And then you put the rest online, and we're going to have like half the venues that existed pre-pandemic won't exist in a year. Half of them are going to close, and that is brutal. And the ones that do exist are going to have like built-in turnkey streaming, because that's just going to be the only way, and like a hybrid model. And so, we're really, with Side Door, we're trying to be really focused on the hard ticket model, because I feel like, and I'd be interested your take on this, but like I felt like doing a free show with a tip jar is sort of like busking in an airport. And there's like, you can have big streams, like there's potentially 10 million people who might fumble upon your stream. But the thing is, like, the actual level of experiential reward from it is pretty minimal, like whereas if you had even like 400 people in a dimly lit club, everyone paid to be there, you're well lit, everything's quiet, and you're all set up, then it's like, you're probably going to have a better time. The audience is going to have a better time, and you're probably actually going to make more money in the end. And so there's what we were trying to do is, how do we set up a model that's not just like a, hey guys, let's make sure that artists survive the pandemic, but actually like, how can we get through COVID and beyond in a way that like, this is a sustainable situation that doesn't rely on the kindness of people, but actually to involve them as like a patron, as a consumer, as an audience, all that kind of stuff. And so I really believe in the hard ticket model, but that doesn't mean that it has to be one thing. It could be like it's free, but it's pay what you want or pay what you can, or it's a minimum $5 and it's, you know, because what we found is that some people can't afford anything right now.
Yeah.
But some people, like I've had people buy a ticket to the show, ask me for my PayPal, and then like PayPal me like $100. And I'm like, that's amazing. like what, you know, like and they're like, I would have just punched in $100 if that was an option. So I think that like, as much as it's good to leave some room for folks that are really hurting financially right now, there's some people who have had great job security and aren't worried at all. And like, let them be the patron that they want to be.
I think it's interesting to talk about bringing the live stream shows as both a ticketed, small scale, 30-person cap or whatever the cap is of du jour as we get back from COVID, but also making it, you know, a live stream show to more people, but also using a venue, using a proper live space, music space. Not that any space can't be a live music space, but also I feel like my heart is hurting for all of the venues as well.
Totally. Yeah.
And as you mentioned, being in a venue might make that a better show for the artist as well. I wanted to know what your opinion is about that. If you had the potential to go, you know, to have smaller shows in venues, but also kind of put them out there via streaming and via potentially ticketed. Is that something that you might be interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I hope Dan is completely wrong, and I hope we all get back to normal. I don't want I don't want to see 30 people shows anymore. No, but I think none of us know what's going to happen. So like you want to get back to reality as soon as possible. And I think if reality is 30 people at your shows and that's all you can do and you have to stream it, I think we're all going to do it. You know what I mean? Like, if we don't have an option, musicians are really resilient in kind of changing with the times. You know what I mean? If busking became the future and we all had to busk for whatever reason, I think musicians would do it. You know what I mean? But I you know, I'm kind of leaning, like maybe I have an old mindset. I'm still leaning towards, I want to do that album cycle, that tour cycle. Like I want to do all that still. So like, it's hard for me to say, you know, am I going to just like put that much energy into streaming? But I've set up myself so that I can do that. You know what I mean? And I'm just playing it by ear. Like I haven't done another streaming concert since that last one, and I'm kind of setting up that next one. But it's a hard call for me. But if I had to do it, I would. You know what I mean? I think that's how I'm looking at it.
Fair enough. I mean, Dan, you had something, your show for nobody, your show to nobody, that last, for those who are, I know we got some updates as far as the audience. I think there's a lot of Toronto folks and there's some Vancouver folks and people from prairies as well. But people from Toronto who wanted to see Dan, your final show at the Danforth ended up being canceled because of COVID. But you took advantage of like, you've really turned that into a situation that was positive. And if you want to explain your show for nobody and how that experience felt. Because that might be what happens a bit more down the line.
Yeah, we had March 12th and 13th at the Danforth, and March 12th was sort of like, oh, things are getting rickety, but you know, there was no mandate from the mayor or anything about audience size, so we just went ahead with the show, and it was unbelievable. Like the energy in there was crazy because everyone kind of knew like maybe this is our last time we get to do this. And then for the 13th, you know, by noon, the mayor had said no gatherings over 50 people, and we're like, okay, we're canceling this. So we went in, but the thing is, everything was set up from the night before. Like I literally just had my guitar on a stand on stage from the night before. And so we walk into the venue to tear everything down, and we're like, what a shame. Like it's all up, it's all ready to go. So we brought in a couple cameras and we just like shot a 25 or 30-minute show to nobody and just like played through and had all the lights, everything going. And then we edited it together, and it was interesting because we premiered it the following Monday. And I watched it with everyone, and I was like typing behind the scenes stuff and answering questions at the same time. Like 1,100 people watched this thing at the same time. And at the end of it, I felt like, whoa, like I felt like the same kind of feeling as if I just walked off stage. I was like, oh, I really felt involved. And for me, that was like the beginning of the wheel turning in terms of Side Door, is like, okay, how do I get that feeling? Like, there's no way that watching through my phone or something is going to be the same visceral experience as being at a live show. Like there's just no replication of that. And so I was like, well, rather than trying to focus on the highest quality version of something that couldn't possibly be any good, what if we dig in, because Zoom, the audio quality, the video quality is not as good as YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. It's just not. But the interactive element of like being around humans and talking with humans and everything, like I was like, lean into the silver lining, like lean into the human imperfect element of it, and maybe we'll all walk away feeling like we just connected with each other and we're part of something, instead of like, oh, that was an entertaining thing with some songs that I like.
Yeah.
So really, really leaning in that direction.
I like that, leaning into the silver lining. And also, as we become more used to live stream shows, we do find that connection in a different way. And I feel like, do you guys have any memorable moments? I mean, Dan, we just heard that one, but I do have one from your recent live stream, one that really captured you. And you were like, oh, I am connecting to this audience. This does make me feel like I'm back in a setting that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I think like with the Zoom experience, I was just ranting and going off, and I started doing this thing called Hollywood Squares, and I would just call on random random people in the audience and just put them on the big screen, the main speaker screen, and then just let them talk, and me and them just go back and forth, and they'd, you know, say how much they love the music or ask me a question. And I ended up, by the end of this show, nobody wanted to leave, so I just ended up doing that for like for like almost 40 minutes, right? And then I did one more song to close everything out. And then we did, I have a sing-along song. Someone demanded that I do one of my sing-along songs. So I turned on everybody's microphone, and it was a disaster. But it was a beautiful disaster. It was a beautiful disaster because we all did it together.
You get one of those.
Yeah.
You get one, and it's crazy, and you never do it again. Yeah, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. So I think to like add to what Dan was saying, all the gear in the world is amazing. Like if you have the best gear, that's only gonna help you out. But the most important thing is having that connection and creating that experience. And that's whether you're live, whether you're on your phone, whether you're you have a beautiful camera, DSLR camera or webcam, whatever you're using. If you're not creating an experience or connecting to people, it's not going to translate and it's not going to grow. You know what I mean? So I think what Dan's saying is as musicians, we're even learning that. Like, how do we get that connection? Because if we're not feeling that connection, it's just like a live show. If you go up and phone it in, the audience is going to know, you know what I mean? So we're looking for that lightning in a bottle, that excitement, you know what I mean?
I'll tell one other story of, I was watching Jill Barber's show, and I've seen Jill Barber play in a venue with a, you know, crazy get up and a big band and lights and everything, and just knock it out of the park and play a great show. But the most emotionally impacted I've ever been at a Jill Barber show was watching her play acoustic guitar from her living room.
Wow.
And like she was talking with her fans. There was this one guy who came on the screen, and he was bawling. He was so overwhelmed. He was talking, and Jill's his favorite artist in the whole world. And he's crying, talking to her like that, like just talking about what her music has meant to him. And now I'm crying, watching him cry. And it's like a show is not just about loving an artist and like giving them all your love, the love because they deserve it, because they're special. A show is about loving the community that artist creates. So it's like when you go to a show, you're going to go see like you know, Slayer or something like that, and everyone's wearing a Slayer t-shirt. You're like, yeah, man, like we're a movement, like I'm a part of something. And that is the feeling you get at a great show. Like you leave and you're like, man, life's crazy, but the pros outweigh the cons, and I want to go climb a mountain. And like, that's how you should feel at the end of a thing, is that you've like experienced something big. And I think that you like the crazy thing about this medium is that, like, you know, we're in different cities. Like I'm in Vancouver, you're in Toronto, but here we are, we're chatting, you know. I think it's really cool.
I like how Karina commented and wrote, yes, connection builds trust, which will lead to long-term support on and off the stage. And I wanted to talk about what kind of questions do you think artists or bands should be asking themselves before their live stream? Like what should they be, you know, everyone's competing for eyeballs. What should they be thinking about before they get into it?
You got to know what your audience is, right? Like, even though like you're in Vancouver, if most of your audience is in Vancouver, you don't want to put your time of your show at a time where they can't pay attention to it. You know what I mean? So they're all sleeping, or they're not awake yet, right? So knowing your audience is important. I think it's very important. It's hard to know your audience sometimes, because I think, like to what Dan was saying, I've been supporting a lot of musicians on tour. And I think doing that Zoom concert was the first time I really felt like these are my people, this is my community. I got to take care of these people now, right? So knowing your audience, trying to know your audience, trying to even ask, like everything is open. Like you kind of can do anything now, right? So like you can ask your audience what they want, and they will tell you, and it won't seem awkward or unprofessional. You know what I mean? So that's what I would add to that. Like just having that conversation with your audience and seeing what they want from you. You know what I mean? Even ask them what time would be. You don't want to ask them too much because it can get like crazy. Like you have
then
no
they all
control.
just start yelling
Yeah,
Freebird.
do this, do that, sing this song. Yeah.
I think it is important to think about like what kind of thing do you want to do, right? Like if you're an artist who thrives behind the veil, like you kind of thrive behind the smoke and mirrors and you're not much for banter, like, you know, maybe you should just do like a broadcast from a crazy sound studio with projections and make it all ethereal. But if you're someone who's just like, you know, is good with people and you're, you know, and you can just kind of play a guitar, do something super simple and human, and just sort of know like what target you're trying to hit and like how you want people to feel, and then make that your North Star and then base everything around it. Like for one of our shows, you know, we had a thing where I was going to play a full album front to back. And so when people bought a ticket, they got a little message saying, hey, email this email address with a story if you want about a song or about how this album was in your life or something. So then we got a whole slew of emails come in the door, and my co-host Mark, who co-hosts all my shows, he's awesome. I really recommend people use a co-host on these shows, just someone who can run the tech while you're thinking about performance, sort of treat it like a stage manager. And so he, unbeknownst, like, not, I mean, I kind of knew he was doing it, but I wasn't part of the process. And so throughout the show, after like every 2 or 3 songs, he'd interrupt me and he'd be like, okay, Dan, I'm going to bring up Carol here and she's going to tell a story. And then Carol would come up and just like knock my socks off with a crazy story that blows my mind. And now I'm responding to Carol, and you can see other people responding to Carol. And there's like an element of scarcity, like impromptu spontaneousness. It's not just about set list, it's about, and so I think like you can plan a show to be quite, like you can plan it to be spontaneous, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a question in the chat from Michaela who's asking, like, that's great if you have a community, you have a fan base, but what do you do? I will say this. I really, really, really firmly believe that the quality of the experience is not about scale. It's not about 1,000 people on a Zoom show.
Absolutely.
If you do a Zoom show to 20 people, you'll all fit on one screen. You'll be able to see everybody the whole time. Like that's amazing. And I think that really, again, leaning into quality over quantity, like don't go on YouTube and just like, oh, trying to get as many people as possible in like this much capacity is so much less interesting than getting 30 people who want to be there, who are like your people. And I think you'll make more money and have a better time as well.
Better time, yeah. And they'll tell other people the next time you do it. You have to grow things. And I think Dan's exactly right. Quality, great songs, come with your best songs, your best performance, be ready to like just blow people away. You know what I mean? People are going to talk about it, you know?
And they will remember it, you know. Yeah, they'll become an evangelist for you, and they'll go out and be like, oh my God, I had this amazing experience. I saw Michaela do this song, and I had asked for her, and she explained what it was about, and you know that will become like, if you can get. We have a saying, like a philosophy at Side Door: if your footprint cannot be wide, let it be deep. It's like a fox paw in the snow, you know. Like if you can't sell 2,000 tickets, blow 60 minds and make it the best night ever. And that always striving for depth, if you don't have width to your footprint, is the way to go.
And I would also add, like, if you can capture your experience in some way and show a highlighted moment on your social media, right? The people who are there are going to respond to that and talk about how great it was. And like, so after I did my Zoom, I had that, you know, the big screenshot with everybody's in it. And I put like, even had a picture of my mom in there. She showed up on the Zoom. And then
that was my favorite moment.
That was your favorite moment? She came out, right?
Yeah.
She didn't know what she was doing. She was like staring at the camera. Anyhow, when I shared that post, all the people who were there talked about how amazing it was. And then you get a slew of other people who are saying, man, I missed it. I wish I was there. Please do the next one. You get other people saying, hey, man, next time, charge us. We want to pay you. So like you said, they proselytize what you're doing. I think we forget that you got to grow stuff. just because the whole world is at your fingertips doesn't mean they're going to give you a high five. You know what I mean? Like they're not. You got to build with who's there, and they will share. That's how every artist grows. Some people get lucky and they just have these crazy moments, but that's just luck. You know what I mean?
There's an analogy.
Sorry, go for your analogy.
I was just gonna say, like, there's a temptation, especially when you're starting out, where you're like on a train and you're like, man, as soon as everyone's on this train, I'm gonna launch it and it's gonna be amazing. Like once I get that booking agent at the gig and that manager, and it's sort of like you're waiting and like you got this great song, you don't want to put it out yet because you want to put it on like a later thing or something, and you're just waiting until something galvanizes. And the truth is, screw all that. Like you want your train to be moving at all times, no matter if there's 2 people on it or 10,000. And the trick is, you get your train going and it's going to go faster and faster and more people. And you want people at the next station jumping on the train as it rolls on by, because nobody wants to have 1 foot on the platform and 1 foot on the train. Like you just got to do your thing and be amazing, and people they'll find you. Like they want to get on. And so you need to create that kind of momentum where you're not standing still going, oh, you guys, you wait, I'm going to blow your minds as soon as everyone's here, you know? And so just like do it, even if it's small to begin with, do it amazing, have an incredible time, and then work from there. And like, just, you know, every little victory counts.
I wanted to just add to both of those points, but for example, talking about your mom going on to your live stream. I missed your live stream, but I was so invested in your Instagram post where you got vulnerable and you talked about it and you showed. And so I'm here feeling like I was there and I'm cheering for you and the moment. And I think that also goes to show that within the live stream that you're putting out there, you have all this great content and all these great shareable moments to also continue to share to bring more people in. And to kind of create, I mean, I'm an emotional mess at the best of times, but I can create those emotional moments and connectivities. And I think we're all kind of vulnerable right now, and we all want the comfort of watching our favorite artists perform in any capacity. And if we miss something, or perhaps you're discovering someone, there are these moments of discovery and connectiveness that can come from things beyond the live stream that just have a repurposing to share the moment. So.
Lana, I noticed that there's a bunch of Q&A in our Q&A tab. I wonder if we want to specifically get to some.
Oh yeah, let's do it. I can do it in 2 minutes, but why not? Okay, so let's go. Well, there are some do's and don'ts. There's lots of questions about high quality audio and video as a baseline requirement for a paying audience. So that's from Craig. I don't know if it's an actual question.
Is that like in the chat still? Are we in the chat still?
It's in the chat. Okay, let's go to the Q&A.
Yeah, there's a Q&A side.
Fawn writes, I'm planning an album release for August and would like to use a mix of live music and recorded footage. Is that possible using the side door platform, or is it Zoom?
Totally, yeah. So it's using Zoom the same way you would here. If I share my screen, I can then go to a YouTube video, I can load up something in QuickTime, I can share the audio from my computer. So one of the advantages of Zoom is how versatile it is. Like you can throw to your friend, you can throw to an audience member, you can unmute this person, you can mute them, make them go away, pull up a video, pull up a PowerPoint presentation, whatever it is that you want to do. It is totally set up for you to present basically anything from your computer.
So what are the rights? So comes from Spencer. What are the rights, payment issues, paywall, ticketed event in comparison to digital streaming event on Facebook, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh,
any rights, payment issues?
I'm thinking about they're probably thinking SOCAN payments and stuff like that. It might seem like that.
Yeah.
Damn, that's
so,
you, man.
well, we're in direct touch with SOCAN about all this stuff, and that was like one of our first questions, because Side Door from day one we have automatically paid PROs, so SOCAN or ASCAP BMI. We take it out of the ticket, we pay the PROs, and that way the PROs weren't going after the hosts on Side Door saying, "Hey, you owe us $60 from this show because this artist submitted a set list." And so the same applies to online shows. You should be paying a PRO for your show, and then you should also be submitting your set list to that PRO. Treat your online show the same way you would treat a regular show now. I mean, it's the only kind of shows we have. Yeah. Submit your set list to SOCAN, make a date of the show, and they'll want to know, like how many people tuned in and all that kind of stuff. So it's all really important. With Side Door, that's already taken care of. You don't have to worry about it. You still need to report your show and submit your set list to get paid back, but we will pay SOCAN for you and take it out of the ticket revenue.
See, I'm learning too. I didn't do that.
There's one from Francine who says, where do you find information on optimizing Zoom for music?
Oh, do I have a resource for you? Okay, so on the Side Door website, I personally made this document. It is extensive.
It really is.
Where is it here? Online show tips is what we're looking for.
You could type it in the chat so people can click it.
Yeah, I'm gonna link it in there. So this is like, there's a landing page here with just some like a quick bullet points of like, this is handy, but also if you want, you can download like a 45-page PDF, and I made it in Keynote, and it outlines like all best practices. You must, the most important thing of doing a show over Zoom, you have to enable something called original sound. Yeah. So Zoom takes all the audio and it garbles it through gating and compression so that if there's traffic behind you and I'm speaking, the traffic is weeded out, but you can still hear my voice. That's really handy for conferencing and meeting and speaking. But as soon as you bring like instruments and dynamics and like, you're plugging in microphones into Zoom, what you need to do is original sound is a feature on there that cuts most of the gating and compression on Zoom. The other thing that you can do is use an application called Loopback. Loopback is an amazing program. It's $100 US, but what it lets you do is route audio from one application on your computer to another application. So if I'm talking on Zoom right now, I don't hear my voice coming back to me in my, because Zoom doesn't send you back a monitor of your own voice. But if you want to be able to hear yourself, if you want to use reverb, if you want to use any other effects or EQing or anything, what I'm doing on my rig is I'm running my audio interface, which is an Apogee Duet, into Pro Tools. I'm EQing my voice, EQing the guitar, setting some compression, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm running that into Loopback and then running it from Loopback into Zoom. So now I can hear myself full reverb. I can hear exactly what, like sort of how it's supposed to sound. And then I'm also sending it out through Zoom with the appropriate kind of like, because otherwise what you're doing is you're taking something raw and putting it into Zoom. So if you're able to run it through another program like Ableton or Logic or Pro Tools or what have you, it just gives you way more flexibility, and you need Loopback in order to do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. I chose a different route. I did everything up until Pro Tools. I used a mixer, a physical mixer, right. 10-channel mixer, USB mixer. And so I'm running my Apogee Duet as well into the mixers. That I'm more of an analog guy. So in terms of like, I'm not interested. I hate using, even though I do my demos on Logic Pro and whatnot, I prefer to touch knobs and stuff like that. So I bought that for this specific purpose because I didn't have it for my, my Facebook show, and I was going just straight through. I thought I was doing what you were doing. I was going through my Apogee Duet into the Logic Pro X, but I didn't have that. What's it called? Was it called?
Loopback.
Loopback. So what ended up happening to me was people who were on a phone didn't realize, but if you were watching my show on your computer, you were getting my voice coming through one side of your speaker and my guitar coming through another side of your speaker, because it was taking the analog sound coming from my guitar and my voice, turning it into digital, and then separating the channels, and you got from left and right? And a few people who were watching on their computer nobody really complained. Everybody said it sounded great. We got 3 comments, and my mentor was in the chat saying, hey, he said this long paragraph, they deleted it and called me right after and said, he said, if you're gonna do this, he's like, I saw another show where the guy did the exact same thing as you did, because he's the left. I hope I'm not speaking too technological, but essentially, yeah, you gotta have something that's gonna take your analog sound that when it goes into digital and make it into a not mono, but a stereo sound, and not a left and right channel, right? So
yeah, and essentially, like there's 2 best assets you have when you're preparing for an online stream. One, friends. Like if you have a friend who knows when things sound good or when they don't, like whether they're a musician or not, just like do a Zoom call with them and run it, test it out. If you have friends that are engineers or producers or people who just know how to use audio gear better than you, lean on them, give them a call, ask them what they're doing, ask them how to run things. The other thing is time. Like, spend a couple hours. Like
Yeah.
with Zoom, you can set up, you don't even need to have someone on the other end. You can start a new meeting, be the only person in it, press record yourself trying a bunch of settings for like 20 minutes, and then like end the meeting and then go watch the video. You'll see how it looks, you'll see how it sounds. It's like direct feedback of like, you know, how is this coming through? And so you can go and you can sort of sound check yourself.
And you could do that with QuickTime as well, right? Just record yourself on QuickTime, yeah.
There's a question, is there any data that Sidedoor has or will have that indicates if there's a benchmark regarding number of followers or fans for an artist to have a successful event?
I mean, coming back to my comment to Michaela, like, I think that like the quality is not based on scale, it's based on like the intention and the execution. So like, I love the idea that someone can make, you know, if you sell 20 tickets for $5, like made $100, you know. I love the idea that even if something is small in scale, that it can be really, really powerful. And so I mean, I feel like successful is sort of like a relative term. Like, you know, Stephen Page has played like 6 Sidedoor shows and he sells like 1,000 tickets every time. I mean, he's, you know, a really well-known artist. Whereas there's people who are also on Sidedoor who have like, you know, just kind of getting going and they're playing for their friends and family. And that's totally cool. Like we don't, you know, there's no gate to access to Sidedoor. Anyone can sign up, anyone can run a show. We don't force you to have a certain amount of social followers or anything like that. And, you know, there's sort of a natural marketplace at hand where if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not good at making music and you haven't figured out the tech, you're probably also not going to be someone who's selling a lot of tickets, you know? And so there's sort of like, there's a natural flow of like the people who have invested in this format are going to be the ones who succeed. So
yeah. That's everything.
Again, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, did you want to add to that, I?
No, I just said that's everything in life, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I just wanted to try, because I'm looking through the comments and there's lots of questions about kind of optimizing audio for Zoom or also repurposing video. But Dan, where, again, can people find your very detailed step-by-step guide, which is very thorough?
So I put it in the chat of it's up there somewhere now. It's probably buried. But also, if you go to Sidedoor, scroll all the way to the bottom. It's called Online Show Tips. And it's like it's in the footer of the website down there. Online Show Tips, there it is. And it's comprehensive. Like it could be slightly more technical when it comes to setting up Loopback and all that kind of stuff. I kind of drew the line because I was just going crazy getting into like rabbit hole after rabbit hole. But it's a pretty all comprehensive, like best practices for running, like talking with your co-host, figuring out what you want to do, like like when you start your show, like if you don't want people to come in yet, hit, you know, enable the waiting room and, you know, like hit the mute all. And then a little thing comes up that asks you if you want people to be able to unmute themselves. And like, no, you don't want them to be able to unmute themselves because you want total overlord powers. You don't want people interrupting your show with a screen share. Turn screen share off. Like all these little things that you learn after you screw it up a couple times. I'm just trying to prepare people for those and like help them get up the mountain of that first show so that they feel the victory. And then from then, honestly, I got Danny Michel to do a show on there really, really early on. He was like the first artist who did it after I did. And he was like, I don't know, man. And I don't know if people are going to pay for this. Come on. And so, you know, several Zoom calls and figuring out and Peter Katz has done a great tutorial. I've watched Peter Katz's tutorial. Thank you, Beth, for posting that. But, you know, like it was a lot of work. Like I was on the phone with Danny like 10 times and doing sound checks with him and emails back and forth and everything. But then as soon as he had that first show, he called me and he was like, oh my God, that was amazing. And I just made a bunch of money. And he's like, I wonder if I could like stream from my drone and like, I'm going to do one from my campfire out behind my studio. And I'm going to do this. And like, by the time he had his 3rd or 4th show going, he's got like green screen, different effects going on for different songs. He's running backing tracks. And the first one was like with an acoustic guitar. So it's like, people get that first one out of the way and they like, then all the wheels start spinning and they're like, oh my God, look what's possible here. Yeah, super cool.
And I think to add to that, like you want to like Dan saying, kind of grow with your experience, learn as you grow. So the whole point of doing all this stuff, like I have my lights in the background, LED lights in the background. I'm using a microphone, is to make everything easier for you. Like you're trying to make it all simpler for you. So don't go beyond your understanding. You know what I mean? Like if you're reading something and you don't get it, like you don't go there yet. Like there's so much more. Like he has the lights in the background. Like if you don't know how to operate the lights properly, like I'm sure you watch tutorials on how to set up your lights, where to point them, and did the same. Like I got my lights up too, right? LED lights. But you may not need the lights right away. You know what I mean? You need to have a clean sound. Figure out how to get the clean sound first, and then upgrade your setup to the next thing and the next thing.
Oh, guys, the best thing you can do is buy one of these. Buy a long Ethernet cable that will go all the way to your modem. Honestly, my upload speed went ×7 when I bought one. And like, that is going to be it's going to create the most fluidity possible.
See, what if you're using, I have that in my dongle. See, get dongles. That's another thing. Because I was like, what if you're using a MacBook Pro and they don't have that import? But I got a dongle that has that import that's just empty right now. So I'm gonna take your advice.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, is there anything at your early shows that you learned, much like the Ethernet trick? Is there any tricks that you discovered earlier on that you're like, this is a really valuable thing that's kind of small, but it changed the game for me?
This is a very simple thing. The mic you use, if you're using a microphone, so let me grab. If you look back in that corner, that's an AKG mic, a 215, I think it's called. It's like the half of the 414, I think. So I know that's so that mic is great for recording vocals in studios, recording instruments in studio, but it's not good for live streaming, right? So knowing what mic you're going to use, this is a good mic for broadcasting. I'm sure a lot of people see these in podcasts and whatnot because it gives it a very direct sound. It helps to not compress the sound, but keep it tight, right? So you can't hear a lot of background noise. In that other microphone, it was giving me a lot of pops and I was like really close on the mic and it sounded okay. That was the first show I did, but it got better with this microphone, I believe, right? So that was just making, because people want to feel as pure as experience as possible. So getting things out of the way, putting things in your way that are going to get other things out of your way. So the right microphone, the right mixer, if you're going to use a mixer, the right Apogee Duet costs a fair bit of money, if you know what I mean, especially right now. So you may not have the means to buy an Apogee Duet, but there are other audio interfaces that are not as expensive. And maybe you may not be at that point right now where you can even use an audio interface, because not everybody, like some of us just want to share music to our audience, you know what I mean? And we don't want to upgrade our whole setup, you know what I mean? Some of us don't have studio rooms, right? So, just finding that the simplest, I'll take it back to that, finding the simplest way. And I think that was everything that I did set up was for me to find the simplest way that I can plug in and start. So now when I go in, it's just really turning on my computer, plugging in the USB cables that go into my computer and turning on the power bars, right? So it's that simple now, and just, checking the levels and whatnot. But
someone in the chat is asking what mic that is.
This is a Shure SM57B, I think it's called, right? This is the one that Michael Jackson used on Thriller.
I think that's actually an SM7.
7B, what did I say? SM7B, sorry.
Yeah, 7B, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, Peter Nickel.
That's the same mic that I'm using over here, by the way.
Yeah. I think I have a 57. I'm not a tech savvy guy. I'm not a tech geek, so I try to keep all that stuff simple. I got this one because I see people on the broadcast use it. They said Michael Jackson used it when I went to Long McQuaid, and this is the one I got. So.
Well, and also in terms of interface, like an Apogee Duet is a little more expensive. There's one that Focusrite makes. I think it's like $100, and it'll get you 1, maybe 2 channels in. But if you are using like a little mixing board and stuff, which is also fairly inexpensive, you can then take like one signal out of that mixing board and have as many channels as you want, and then just plug that into your interface. There's a lot of ways around it, and like a million YouTube videos that'll help you set up an interface. I think Focusrite also has like a sort of streaming kit, which is like an interface, a pair of decent headphones, and then just like a decent kind of like condenser mic that you can put on your table. So I think it's like $300 maybe, which is like, I mean, that's not nothing, but considering that it's like an all-in-one package, I imagine they're probably sold out right now, but yeah.
Oh my gosh, webcams are all sold out. That was another thing. Be prepared, because I didn't get my webcam until like a week before, and the one I wanted was all sold out everywhere. I'm lucky I got another one. And I want to say, like, we're talking a lot of, like, I think me and Dan have a bias towards Zoom. You like the great thing about technology is like if you have an iPhone, you can still do a lot with just your iPhone. From my experience, I didn't like Instagram. Out of the three platforms I use, Instagram was my least favorite because I have a Huawei, which is the phone that was made in China, and I think all the phones are made in China, but like the Chinese company is Huawei. And it's the compatibility for live streaming, unless you're just straight talking into your phone, it doesn't sound good. You get all the slapback. I didn't know how to turn off the noise cancellation thing. Like I couldn't find it in my settings, so I had to go through the setup I have right now, and then I had to get OBS, which is what's the word? Open broadcast software, and then I had to use a thing called Yellow Duck to stream to Instagram, and that was a complete nuisance. I couldn't interact with the audience. I couldn't type back to them. It was just like it was going through this weird server, probably through Russia, going onto Instagram, right? So if you have an iPhone and that's what you're using, if you have an Android that works fine with your sound, like it's you got to be careful with the noise cancellation because once you start singing and playing your guitar, they might compete with each other. But we're talking about taking your stuff to another level. But don't feel like if you don't do this stuff, you can't do anything. Like you can always get there. If you want to go on IG and you know that's where your fan base are, put your phone on, get a tripod. You can put your phone down, or have one of your friends, family members, record for you and just do a show. You know what I mean? Get the audience there, let them know. So don't get overwhelmed by all this stuff. Like when I was looking to all this, I had like 20 tabs of YouTube videos open, trying to figure out how to do all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like you'll
Such
get
a rabbit
to that.
hole.
Yeah, right. You'll get to that deranged moment where you want to do that, and that's beautiful. But until then, try your best just to do a great show, have a great experience, to dial it back. So I don't want to take away from anything Dan's saying or that I'm saying in terms of getting to that level, but don't forget, like, the experience is always more important. You can have all the gear in the world and then the show sucks. You know what I mean? So
there's a question from Fawn who wants to know, does bandwidth become more of an issue if there's a bigger audience?
I've actually found it doesn't. And I think that has to do Zoom when you're running through the app. Like you can have 25 people on a screen at once. And I think the reason why they cap it at 25 and they don't just let you have like 100 is because that's the number that they feel like is the maximum before it's really going to start to degrade things.
yeah.
But to be honest, like the number one thing you need to worry about is your upload speed. Like if you're the performer, all you need to worry about is your upload speed. So, I mean, I have pretty fast internet where I live, and I plug in hardwired, and my upload, you can do speedtest.net and see what it is. Like if you have an upload speed of over 5 megabytes a second, that's probably good enough to do like a pretty strong like stream, I should say. And so that's good. That just hardwired internet, as fast internet as you can have. Worry about your upload speed. If you are on, especially if you're on Wi-Fi, make sure like nobody in your home is using Wi-Fi while you're, so like you don't want to be like doing a show and like your roommate's running Spotify in the next room and someone else is watching Netflix in the living room or something like that. And it's just it's all like, think of it like a highway, you know, like there's only so many lanes, and if all the lanes are taken, you can't get around them.
Yeah.
So it's just, you want to minimize traffic on your bandwidth, protect your bandwidth as best you can. Yeah.
I know we've got to wrap pretty soon, but I did want to get to this question. I'm losing questions here. From April, who says, how often is too much for live streaming? Is weekly too much? Dan, you're doing it bi-weekly. That seems sustainable and not too much for people. So do you guys have any feedback regarding, maybe also from the artist perspective, like not there's audience and artist, how much is too much?
I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I'd love to hear as first.
Yeah.
Man, I'm probably the wrong person to to ask the question, because I think I've only done the one little tour that I did, but I've waited a long time to do the next one. Like I feel like it depends how you do it. If you're going on Facebook and you try to do one every week, that might be too much because you're tapping into the same audience consistently. If you're going through side door, you're going just through your own means on Zoom, you can sell tickets to different people all the time, and it can be a limited amount of people. Say, you know, like I'm using it a little differently. Like I want to use Zoom as an exclusive experience, right? So I'm going to always have limited sales. I think, I don't know, I might be wrong here. That's how I'm trying to position my live concerts for when things open up again and go back to normal. How can I integrate that into my normal everyday activity? So I think that if it's you just got, everything comes in cycles, like promoting cycle, like you have to promote it. Like you can't just say, hey, today's a live concert. So you got to think, okay, if I just promoted something last week, can you really promote something again for next week? You know what I mean? Like, or do you have it set up as a one long promotion or as a tour, right? Like, okay, so these are the shows that I'm doing over this period of time. But I try not to burn my audience out. But I think some people don't care and they do it and their audience is always there. You know what I mean? So it's to me, I take my time with that. I wouldn't say once a month because that's very like less than I probably would do in the future. But right now I'm kind of operating on that scale. But I did do within a week span, like 4 shows, right? So, and yeah, so there we go.
I think the same rules apply as a real show. Like there's saturation point and everything, right? Like if you're playing an open mic every night of the month and then you're like, hey guys, I got a ticketed show coming up to like in 3 days, everyone come out to that. Like if you sort of set up the assumption that you're going to be doing this constantly, people might not buy a ticket because they're just going to feel like, oh, there's lots of that going around.
Yeah.
Like one time Jim Bryson had a show up on Side Door and he texted, he's like, man, I'm having trouble selling tickets for this show. And I was like, but haven't you been doing a free Instagram show every night this week? Like, you know, like how do you expect people to like buy a ticket for this other thing when you're just giving it away? I did one every weekend for a while. And I found that was like a little bit too much just for me, not even from like a saturation point. I was just like, God, like I need to like have a moment of my life where I'm not promoting something. So I have started doing every 2 weeks and that's worked out really well for me. But one thing that's interesting is I had 6 shows in a row and they had fluctuating between like 400 to 700 tickets every week, which was amazing, right? Like it's incredible. And it was great. I was having so much fun. And then I was like kind of burning out on it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off. And I took 2 weeks off and I announced a show with a really interesting, unique proposition. I was going to play nice, very nice front to back. And because I'd created 2 weeks of scarcity, and that 3rd week when I came back, and I put that show on sale and I sold out 960 tickets in 24 hours. And it was like, whoa, like huge learning moment for me. I was like, okay, so wait a minute. If I create some scarcity and then I come back to the table with like proper marketing and I made a poster for it and I put it on socials and I announced everything at the same time and I put it to my newsletter and I put it to Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and I like did a big blast and I treated it like I was announcing an actual real show rather than like, oh, I think I'm going to do this thing. And it sold. And it was like, okay, so if we treat this like a real show, then it will sell like a real show. Yeah. And that was a big learning moment. So, you know, not just for sales, but for my own sanity, I've started doing every 2 weeks. But, you know, Stephen Page sells 1,000 tickets every week, but he's Stephen Page and he's got a big audience. So, you know, I think you just kind of have to know what works for you and what works for people. But again, like if you're going to do Instagram Live for fun, don't do an hour playing a whole set. Do like 20 minutes and like play a couple covers and then tell people about your ticketed show. Like treat it like an ad almost, you know, and funnel everything towards the real show.
And I'll add, like, this may come off a bit harsh. Like now that we're all under, I mean, quarantine's kind of semi-lifted a little bit, but now that, you know, don't hold your audience hostage. You know what I mean? Like, don't, like, we're all home, we're all on the computer. Let's just do as many shows as possible and force them to watch every show. Like, if you go out on tour, I think then you got to look at it like if you're getting to that level, it's a business. You got to promote it. You got to give your fans time to share it for you, have them help you promote it. Don't think that like just because they're all out there now, I get to do as many shows as possible. You know what I mean? When you're monetizing, you can't exhaust your audience. You got to understand that they're working for the money just like we're working for our money, and you can't just expect them to throw that at you every single weekend. When you're on tour, you don't go to the same city every single weekend. You keep moving, go to new city and new city and new city. That's why for myself, I would kind of make it a VIP experience, limited experience. Yeah.
I did want to ask, because when you were saying, you know, if you're on tour, you're going city to city to city. There's a really interesting question. Spencer asked, can you geofence the concerts regionally so you can hit a different market every week, for example? Is that a possibility?
We're getting there with Side Door. We're not there yet, but you know, Side Door is interesting because you can split revenue right at the point of sale. So you can have like a host or a presenter come on. So like MRG is promoting shows on Side Door, Calgary Folk Festival, the Culch. Like we're starting to work with presenters who've had to cancel their festivals and cancel their seasons, and they're coming on. And so like you can act as a host on Side Door and you can promote this artist's show. And in effect, what you're doing is you're helping them sell tickets, and you can actually split that revenue with the host. And it's all totally pre-negotiated. And then ticket revenue is held in escrow, and after the show, it gets automatically dispersed into everyone's bank accounts based on that pre-negotiated split. So the interesting thing, and this is where we're getting to, is that you could geo-fence that ticket. And so you could work with a Calgary presenter in Calgary and fence that ticket to just Calgarians. And then you can play a show with a London promoter and just play to people in London, like later that day. You know, you could play in Pittsburgh and Vietnam in the same day and effectively tour online. So we are kind of getting there. We're a few months away from that, but it's in our pipeline.
And I think it's probably a more convoluted way of doing it, but I think on Facebook, there is a way to only have your live for certain people. So if you can find a way to do, I know Zoom, you could do a registration as well. You can find a way to do a registration where they have to sign up and give you proof of where they live. You know what I mean? It might be a little more work for you to do, but if you're willing to go down that path, you can get them maybe registered through your mailing list, get proof of where they live. I don't know how you do that. They send you ID. I don't know what, you know what I mean? A piece of, I don't know, a piece of mail or something, but there's ways to do it. I just don't think they would be the easiest ways administrative wise to do that on your own. You know what I mean?
Lana, in the Q&A part, I see that there's like a bunch of questions just about Side Door. I wonder if I could just quick lightning round, like just nail off some answers.
Yeah, sure. I was going to say, yeah, if you want to. I've been trying to roll through. Did you want me to hit them up, or do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm just gonna hit it. So within a Side Door hosted concert, how can you rig studio quality sound for a Zoom audience? Use an interface. Use something like Loopback. Use Pro Tools or Logic or whatever you have, and you can route it in through Loopback and then into Zoom. Use original sound. Original sound is your friend on Zoom. What is the audio rig used for single performer or multi-performer? You can't do two people in a different place. If you are in the same space and you're on the same internet, you can do multi-performer. If you're in different places right now, you can't jam. But what you can do is like take turns or do songwriters in the round kind of thing. How can you build an audience with Side Door? The same rules apply to the real world, you know, bit by bit. Focus on quality over quantity. Ticketed, have you run into any complications with SOCAN fees? Oh, so this is interesting. So SOCAN, you don't pay SOCAN because you are based here. What happens is that you actually need to pay PROs based on the location of the ticket holder. So if 5% of your audience is in London and 10% of your audience is in America and 80% of your audience is in Canada, technically you're supposed to pay SOCAN 80% and then 10% to ASCAP BMI and then 5% to PRS in the UK. Super convoluted, super complicated. So what we're trying to do on Side Door is automate that process for you and just take it off your hands. We're not quite there yet, but we're taking it and we're holding that revenue for the PROs and then going to the PROs and being like, look, we've just collected $10,000 from all these artists. You know, let's do this.
Amazing.
When I share a video from Zoom, it seems to be low frame rate or jerky. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think screen sharing is perfect. If you use something like OBS, which is what I talked about earlier, if you funnel your broadcast through OBS, you can have a higher frame rate, I think, of your than screen share. You can also use a program called eCam, cam with 2 M's on the end, that is similar to OBS.
And I'm not using OBS for Zoom right now. I only use that because of Instagram.
And you can, with OBS, you can do like overlays. You could be like, go to this link, you know, okay, it's a really great program. How do I set up a show on Side Door? Go to Side Door and click set up a show. Do I need to have Zoom account that follows for the number of viewers if I want? Yeah, okay. So to do a show on Zoom with a free Zoom account, you get 40 minutes duration and 100 participants. So my suggestion is you get a pro account that gives you unlimited duration. You're not gated to 40 minutes. And on top of that, if you have more than 100 participants, you need what's called a large meeting 500 add-on. And if you want more than 500 people, you can get up to 1,000 with a large meeting 1,000 add-on. You do not need a business account. You do not need an enterprise account. You just need a pro account with the large meeting add-on, and that will get you up to 500 or 1,000 attendees. I think that was all the side door questions I wanted.
And like Dan is saying some all-star numbers here, so you gotta be careful. You may not be there, right? You know, just be mindful of that. Know what your audience is. Know how much people are gonna come. You may not need to get the 5. Is there one before Pro? I think I got the Pro one, but
Pro is
I don't know
$20. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the other cool thing is like you can put a show on sale, and then like see how well it sells, and then like upgrade your Zoom account like the day before the show. So you don't have to upgrade it before and then guess how many tickets you're going to sell. So just see how you do. And then like, if you're at, you know, if you're at 95 tickets a day before the show, well, maybe you should buy the 500 account because you're going to go over 100 probably. So you can kind of do it. You know, you don't have to like put all your money in the basket beforehand.
Someone asked if this will be available at the David Click Cox, if it's going to be online. This will be online, right, to watch after?
Yeah, CIMA is going to post it online.
Perfect time for me to come in. This will be recorded, or it is recording. Oh my God, I forgot to press record. No, I think I have it right now. So
can we give Lana a round of applause?
Yeah,
for being an amazing
thank you so much for participating.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your wonderful answers and for taking the time. Thank you so much. I learned a lot as well. And thanks to everyone who's been watching and commenting some great questions as well. And thanks everyone for tuning in.